Okay, this is our review for factoring quadratic equations. I'm going to start with multiplying because multiplying and factoring are inverse operations. If I multiply 3 times 5, I get 15. If I factor 15, I get the products 3 times 5. So we need to know how to multiply in order to know how to factor. So let's review our multiplication. We've got x times x, that's the first part of the FOIL. That's x squared. My outside is negative 5 times x, or negative 5x. My inside is 2x, and the last two are 2 times negative 5, which is negative 10. So we get x squared minus 3x minus 10. Now if you'll notice, this middle term came from adding negative 5 plus 2. And the last term came from multiplying negative 5 and 2. That's going to be a key piece of information that we're going to use when we go to our factoring. So multiplying, we use FOIL. The middle term comes from adding these two numbers. The last term comes from multiplying those two numbers. All right, so if I want to factor x squared plus bx plus c, and I've set it equal to 0, you'll see why in a minute. But if I want to factor this quadratic, remember the general form of a quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c. If a equals 1, I can write it as x squared plus bx plus c. So the first thing we're going to learn how to do is how to factor when the leading coefficient is 1. All right, remember we said that the last number is going to have two numbers that are factors, and those same two numbers should add up to the middle number. So I'm looking for factors of negative 8 that add to negative 2. So factors of negative 8. Without the negative sign, it's 1 times 8 or 2 times 4. I can put the negative on either one of those. And I think you can see that if I choose this pair and make the 4 negative, negative 4 times 2 is negative 8, and negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. So these are the two numbers I'm going to use, negative 4 and 2. I'm going to put them into my factored form. So x minus 4, x plus 2 equals 0. And if you FOILed this to check it, you would get x squared minus 2x minus 8. Now, I want you to remember back to another thing that you learned in algebra, which is that if a times b equals 0, then the only way to multiply two numbers together and get 0 for your answer is if one of those two numbers equals 0. So if that's the case, either a has to be 0 or b has to equal 0. Well, that's what I have here. I have this factor times this factor. They both equal 0. Therefore, either x minus 4 has to equal 0 or x plus 2 has to equal 0. One of those has to be true for the product of these two things to be 0. So either x equals 4 or x equals negative 2. And if I plug either of those answers back into the original, I will get 0. Okay, pause the video and try this one on your own. Okay, factors of 3. My only choice is 1 times 3. They do add up to 4. So x plus 1, x plus 3, each one individually has to equal 0. Therefore, my solutions, the two numbers that make this quadratic equal to 0, are negative 1 and negative 3. All right, let's try one now where the leading coefficient is not 1. Now this gets a little trickier. When I just have, whoops, excuse me. Let me go back. Okay, when I have a number here in front, it's going to be a little bit more complicated. So if I don't have the number in front, my two factors are both going to start with x, because the only thing that I can do to get x squared is x times x. Here, my first factors could be 3x and 2x. They could be 6x and x. They could be negative 6x and negative x. There's lots of possibilities. And it would take me a while to figure it out unless I have a method. So what we're going to do is called split the middle. Split the middle does this. Multiply a times c. In this case, 6 times 15, which happens to equal 90. Now, I'm looking for factors of AC that add to B. Not just factors of the last number, but factors of the product of AC that add up to B. So I'm looking for factors of 90 that add up to 19. If you don't see it right away, just start writing down factors. Does 4 go in? No. Does 5 go in? Once 18, 6, yeah, 6 goes in 15 times. Well, that's what I started with. 7, no. 8, no. 9 times 10, I think that's it. So then look through the list and see which of those pairs will add up to 19. Since they're all positives, I don't have to worry about positives and negatives. That's nice. And I think we can see that 9 and 10. Now I'm going to use those numbers to split the middle. These are not my numbers that go into my factors. 6x squared plus 10x plus 9x plus 15 equals 0. You can see that I've taken the middle number and I've split it into two terms. Now I'm going to factor by grouping. Common factor of 6 and 10 would be 2. And actually I can plot an x as well, 2x. So I'm factoring the binomial by pulling out a GCF. So if I factor a 2x out of 6x squared, that leaves me with 3x. If I factor a 2x out of 10x, it leaves me with 5. Over here, 9 and 15, I'm going to factor out a 3, and that leaves me with 3x plus 5 as well. Notice that these two are the same. If they're not, you've done something wrong. You need to start again. Now I'm going to group together. This is a common factor, the 3x plus 5. It's a common factor of 2x and 3. So I can say 2x plus 3, both of those are going to be multiplied by 3x plus 5. So I've undistributed. If I distributed this, it would be 2x times all of this and 3x times all of this. That's what it says, the line above. So I've undistributed the 2x and the 3 from the common factor of 3x plus 5. This is the most confusing step. If you don't get it, come and see me. But now I am down to my factors that can both be set equal to 0 and subtract 3, divide by 2, subtract 5, divide by 3. So those are my solutions. These are my factors. These are my solutions. Pause the video and try this one on your own. Okay, first I have to multiply 3 times negative 12. That's negative 36. Factors. 2 times 18. That's going to look good to me. I'm going to pause right there, because if I got to make one of these negative, so if I make the 18 negative and the 2 positive, they will multiply to my combined a times c, and they will add up to my middle. Remember, I'm going to use those to split the middle. Minus 18x plus 2x minus 12 equals 0. If you didn't get this far and you want to pause and try the rest on your own, pause it again. Okay, using grouping, I'm going to pull out a 3x. I get x minus 6. I'm going to pull out a positive 2. I get x minus 6. So 3x plus 2 times x minus 6 equals 0. Set each factor individually equal to 0. X equals negative 2/3. Subtract 2, divide by 3, and x equals 6. Again, these are my factors. These are my solutions. And I think that's all we're going to do.